Hi, I'm Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in making the Anytime earrings to go along with your Anytime necklace. Remember, the idea of this is there really can be any materials used. So if you want to do the exact ones, gather the materials listed in the beginning and join me in making the matching Anytime earrings. So I'm going to begin the Anytime earrings. Now this is based on the Anytime necklace, and you can go back and reference that video if you want. I'm going to be doing this a tiny bit differently, kind of grading from 3 to 4 to 6, and then popping, or 3, 4, 5, 6, forgot my numbers, and popping in some extra little crystals along the side. I have some KO thread in the gold color, and I'm using that so you can see it a little bit, but also that it's going to kind of disappear behind my orange and red based beads. I do have a size 12 needle on, and I have some seed beads sitting here in the Duracoat Silver Lined Copper, which is a Miyuki brand. To start out, I am going to be adding on 4 of my 3mm crystals. Now this is going to be based on right angle weave, and I'm going to add an 15O between each one of my crystals. This is going to start the small version, basically, of this Anytime. So they're little tiny beads. Adding an 11O, and then adding my crystal, or 15O, keep wanting to say 11, and then switch with your last bead being a 15. So I'm down here at the start of the thread, having on those 4 beads, the 4 crystals with the 4 15Os after them. I'm going to sew through those first 3 crystals. So I'm going through the first 3 crystals, which also is going to include 2 15Os, and bringing my needle out. Give a nice little tight pull, and that's going to begin your first section of your right angle weave. What we're going to do now is we are actually going to go in and add in 3 of our 15s to get a little bit of a diamond shape, going through then just the crystals. So you're adding 3 more 15s and then sewing through just the crystals. 3 more 15s and then sewing through just the next crystal. Move that stop thread out of the way if you need to. So you can see those crystals are kind of decorating the edge and making it a little bit more sitting in a diamond shape. 3 more 15s, sew through a crystal. And obviously you're doing this 4 times because it's based on right angle weave, and we have 4 crystals there. And then I want 3 more 15s and through the last crystal. As I sew through the last crystal, I'm also going to sew through the first 2 15s that I put onto the needle. So I'm sewing through those first 2 15s and bringing my thread and needle out through that center 15. Give a nice little tight pull, and that's going to pull it more into that diamond shape that we're looking to achieve. From here, we're going to get ready to actually add our next of our beads. So the next one is going to be our 4mm bead. The 4mm bead, I should have mentioned the 3mm bead was the Indian red, and now the 4mm bead is going to be that light cyan color. To add the beads here, we are going to be adding basically on this little point here. So to add, I'm going to start off by adding my 4mm, and then I'm going to start actually with my 3 15s. 4mm, and my 3 15s. 4, and I pre-put out all of my piles of my beads so I knew how many I was adding, and that makes sure to kind of finish it out. So from here I have on my 4mm crystals along with my 15Os in between them. I'm going to take my thread and needle back through that 15O that the thread is coming out of. That's going to round it out and add that next right angle unit. From here, I really want to get points on the side as well. So I'm going to kind of do this in reverse order, that we're going to go through the next 4mm bead, and then coming out that 4mm, pop in 1 15, and sew directly over to the next 4mm crystal. Give a nice tight pull, and that's going to pull those 3 seed beads that we added originally kind of off to the side. Add a 15, sew through the next crystal. Again, give a nice tight pull, which pops those 3 seed beads off to the side. Add 1 more 15, sew through the last crystal. Again, tight pull, popping that off to the side. When I'm here at the top, I want to get to the bottom now in order to add my 5mm crystals. So I'm going to sew through the 15, that was the connector. After sewing through that 15, that's the connector, I want you to also sew through that first crystal, sew through that first single 15-0 that you put in towards the middle, sew through the next 4mm bead, and as you come out near the base and the bottom, you're going to sew through the first 2 beads of that grouping of 3. So your needle is going to come out after those first 2 beads. And there you have your next little diamond section of the Anytime earring. So you can see it's kind of really cute. It's building onto that diamond. And what we're going to do now is build on the next bead, which is going to be the 5mm bead. And we're doing this 5mm bead in that red topaz color. So the 5mm bead is going to start out the exact same way as we did the 4mm bead, that you're going to add a crystal, and then we're going to go in and add our 3 15s, crystal, and then 3 15s. So we're repeating that same groupings. So you're going to end up with 4 crystals and 3 groupings of 15s that are separating them out. The only difference that we're going to do in this grouping, and you don't have to, you can keep it to simple, is I'm going to go back to the 3mm beads and add them in to this right angle weave. So that way it sticks out just a little bit more. After you have those 4 beads as well as the 3 seed beads onto the needle, you're going to sew back through that 15-0 that the thread is coming out of, which is going to go from right to left. That's again circling that up and pulling that nice and tight. As we sew through here, we're going to sew through that first 5mm bead and out. Give a nice tight pull to make sure that all that extra thread is gone, and that's going to pull it nice and tightly. From here on the sides, I have my 2 3mm beads that I'm going to add in. So I'm going to pick up a 3mm bead and sew through my next crystal. That's going to pop that 2mm bead in towards the center. From here at the base, I want to add just one of my 15s like I've been doing, and through the next crystal. Along the side, add another one of your 3mm beads, and then through the next 5mm crystal. You can see that puts just a little bit more bling on that outer edge there as we're getting larger. And now we're going to get down to that 3rd bead just like we did previously, going through that 15 that sits between those bicones. Then I'm going to sew down through the bicones. And you can see I rotate the project in my hand to make it easier, 1 for you to see and 2 for me to sew. So you can see I went through the 5mm bead, and then I also went through that 3mm crystal that sits on that right hand side. Once I get to the bottom here, I'm going to sew through that 5mm crystal that sits near the bottom, and then again through the first 2 beads in that grouping of 3 that sits on that outer edge. That gets me to my connection point where I'm now ready to add my 6mm. My 6mm is going to be the largest of my beads that I add, and I have here sitting near me the 4mm beads in that light cyan color. I want to have 3 of those ready. So I have 2 out. I need to grab 1 more. And then we're going to get ready to repeat the same thing, but instead of just adding 2 beads on the side, we're going to add 1 to the bottom as well. So to begin with this last version, same thing as we've been doing, that you're going to add in a crystal, 3 15s. Oh, I'm sorry, we're at the big guy. 4 15s. 5 15s. We need a little bit more space between these, so that way our crystals can sit. Then we get our crystal on. Then we do 5 15s. And then another one of our 6 millimeter, 5 15s. And then our last 6 millimeter. And just like we've been doing after we have these groupings on, we're going back through the 15 at that connection point right there, pulling it nice and tight, and that gets me my last grouping on, so you can see those fun progression of beads. From here, just like we've been doing, go through the crystal, and every time we come out of crystal, this time, we are adding a 4 millimeter crystal. So add your 4, sew through your next hyacinth 6 millimeter. Give a nice tight pull, which is going to pop those seed beads basically around the crystal so they look like they're a little bit of bezeling it or decorating the side. In goes the next 4 and through the next crystal. As you're doing this, make sure that you're not going through any of the seed beads, and make sure as you do it that the thread's not getting caught on any of the seed beads, and giving that nice tight pull so that way the crystal kind of sits on top and towards the middle of those seed beads. Adding your third and final 4 millimeter crystal. And again, this is optional. If you don't want to add the extra bling and the extra crystal, just go ahead and continue with that groupings of 3 crystals and then 1 of your seed beads. From here, all I'm going to do is basically finish it up and tighten it up. So I'm going to go through that 15-0 that sits at the connector spot. And I'm going to go one more time through all of my middle beads. So I'm going to go through my all of my crystals basically. So I'm going to go through my 6-0 crystals as well as my 4s. So I'm going to take another trip around here, going through, give it a nice tight pull. You can see that kind of brings in that nice red in the image here. I really like these. So just like the Anytime bracelet, this one's kind of like literally you can do so many things with it. If you want to, you could even add some extra seed beads along here, but I'm basically going to be tightening this up and just adding an extra thread to it. I'm using the KO thread because I thought it would hide nicely inside the crystal and you could still see it. Sometimes when I use white thread on camera, I think it makes it hard to see the thread. I started out actually doing the video with black thread and I just couldn't do it. I know it would make it easier, but it's not nearly as pretty through the crystals. So I switched to the gold. But you could use the white wildfire as well, or fireline too for this. After you are done going through here, the only thing you need to do is tie off the thread. So whether or not you want to tie it off and knot it off here at the bottom, you can do so, or you can work it back up to the top. Here at the top, I'm just going to add a jump ring between my little section here and then connect it to my ear wire. If you want to, you can even connect to the ear wire from the center of the 3 millimeter or add a little bead at the top. What actually would look nice is if you bring kind of that balance back to the top and add a red bead along the top to make it a little bit bigger. At any point in this design, you can stop and make it the length that you want it to. You could have added one more of your 3 millimeter bead there at the bottom and stopped there. This is going to be a little over an inch long, but I love the different colors and kind of the color waves that it's created. So again, just tie off the thread, add a jump ring to the top, finish your ear wire, and your Anytime earrings are good to go. Thanks so much for watching the Right Angle Weave Anytime Earrings. Remember, if you want to and you haven't made the Anytime necklace, go ahead and check out that video as well. There's so many different versions and so many different opportunities to make and use this right angle pattern. Keep in mind, if you need any of the materials, we listed them out at the beginning for you, as well as below me, near that like and subscribe button, is the list in the dialog box that has the different links to purchase from us at PotomacBeads.com, as well as PotomacBeads.eu. As always, thank you so much for watching and enjoy learning that right angle weave and making your anytime jewelry set.